Welcome to the first installment of the virtual Heart of the Business Conference. I'm Tom Jacobs, and along with Rita Hernandez-Figge, Jake Bartelt, and all the team at MedHQ, we welcome you to the Heart of the Business Conference, now in virtual form. We are joined by John Page, our host and discussion moderator, as well as today, our special guest, Grace Lichtenstein. What you're about to watch is the first in a series of conversations about what is at the heart of your business, you and your teams, the people in your company, and the organizations within which we all work. The purpose of the Heart of the Business Conference is to gather people together who are interested in the topics around wellness and well-being for individuals and for the companies and organizations within which we all work. We will host several more episodes in addition to this first ever episode, and all will discuss various aspects of wellness and well-being. That is, what is at the heart of the business. Before moving into the discussion, which I promise we'll get to quickly, please let me say one more thing. As part of our Heart of the Business Conference series, we're collecting donations on behalf of Metro Chicago Heart Walk. Thank you for your donations, and thank you for watching this and all future Heart of the Business Conference episodes. We are fortunate to have many wonderful sponsors as well, supporting our efforts and those of Metro Chicago Heart Walk. Today, I'd like to especially thank LCM Capital Management and John Nowicki, the president of LCM Capital Management, for their support. All proceeds collected from you, and we mean all proceeds collected, will be delivered directly to the Metro Chicago Heart Walk, which is an event created by the American Heart Association to attract community involvement and financial support for the AHA. In fact, MedHQ is also donating to the Heart Walk through 100% matching contributions, dollar for dollar. Back to the matter at hand. In today's episode, our host, John Page, will dialogue with Grace Lichtenstein. Grace joins us from Humana's Employee Assistance Program, and she and John will discuss, in the aftermath, resiliency, coping, and helping others after distressing events. A very timely topic given the realities we are facing with the COVID-19 pandemic. With all that said, John and Grace, please take it away.
Well, welcome. Our speaker today is Grace Lichtenstein. She's an award-winning international speaker and trainer, a psychotherapist, life coach, and a huge fan of all things NAP-related, which I can understand having all those successful things to do in life. For the last 20 years, she's successfully worked with individuals and businesses to create healthier, more productive, and less stressed people and environments. Grace teaches a variety of general soft skills, things like communication, leadership, team building, conflict management, stress management, as well as more clinical topics. Things like suicide risk assessment and prevention, crisis management, mental health in the workplace, trauma and informed care. To both healthcare professionals and those working outside the fields of medicine, psychology, and social work. It is my distinct pleasure to welcome Grace today, talking about resiliency, coping, and supporting others after distressing events, like the last few months, right, Grace?
Just a little bit. Exactly.
Well, welcome.
Exactly. Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. Oh my gosh. We need to be talking about this stuff, don't we? Because it's been so overwhelming. And it's not ending, right? And that's one of the big things. So today maybe
phase 3 now?
I believe so. Yeah, we just got notification that school is going to start. Yeah. I have an 11-year-old daughter.
You know, the Dust Bowl is coming too.
I know. The mummy's going to be in it, right?
Right. It's all those bad sci-fi fiction movies rolled into one, right?
It is, absolutely. And
so we're all stressed.
And that's one of the things I want to point out that I think it's really important is that a lot of people, they're stressing out, like, but why? I mean, maybe that my job is not in jeopardy. Things have been going really well and I'm really stressed out about this. We're all stressed, partly because we're connected to other people, right? And so what happens is that we're getting the effects on ourselves plus everybody else. There's actually a thing called vicarious or secondary trauma. And typically we see this with first responders and emergency department personnel and stuff like that. but we're picking it up. And the other thing that's stressful to us as human beings is change. I mean, just in general. And I mean, look at all the changes, and the changes change, and the changes that we're being prepared for, the preparation changes, and it doesn't stop. Like you said, it's been going on for months, and it's not 1 + 1 is 2. It's 1 + 1 is 5.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So people are just getting really overwhelmed with it. So we're going to talk about how we can. Okay, and I'm going to sound like a motivational poster right now.
Okay.
This is our opportunity. And it really is. There's a saying in the mental health field, we grow at the speed of pain. And while that really stinks, it in many ways it's true, because think about how we learn and grow, right? It's not usually when we're all nice and comfy. It's when we're encouraged to, right? And we've been getting a lot of encouragement lately.
And
right?
that's
So
that old saying, no pain, no gain, right?
exactly. Now, so this is a cool thing. So when we talk about resilience, and resilience is a skill set, we can all develop it. So if you are awful at it, you can become better. If you're good at it, you can become better. If you're great at it, you can become better, right? Okay, so it's something that we can develop. The cool thing is as we develop this, we can get to the point where we don't have to be in pain to continue to develop it. So that's something to look forward to.
I'm looking forward to that, for sure.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like praying for patience. It's like, okay, you don't have to give me any more situations where you have to learn how to do this. Okay, I got it. So this really is, and again, I know I sound like a motivational poster, but this really is the opportunity, because these situations, they've kicked us out of our ruts. I mean, so many of us have been in ruts for years, right? We have our morning routine, which includes, doing our 9 times tables as we're hitting the snooze. Our daily routine, our after work routine, our mandatory fun routine, you know what I'm talking about? And we get in that rut and we're doing the same thing. And it's not bad. It's not depressing, but think about how much of your life might've been kind of,
It was comfortable though. It's like those old jeans. You've been wearing them for 12 years and they fit in all the right spots, right?
but they have a hole in the butt.
That's right.
And so they're not exactly what we need anymore. We needed it at one point. And the problem with this is that becomes about surviving. And even though it's not a big deal, because it's comfortable, our body's kind of in survival. And that's not a good place for us to be. Our brain doesn't like it. Our central nervous system doesn't like it. Our psychology doesn't like it. And so when we're shaken up a little bit, I mean, I'm not like kicked out of the rut like we were, but shaken up a little bit, that does give us that opportunity. So some of you have heard resilience described as thriving beyond surviving. And that's really what it is, how we can go ahead and survive, get something from the experience, and then be better prepared when the next survival event comes. I mean, that's the ideal. Okay. And so, like I said, it's a skill set. Now, some people have more time and more resources as of this moment in time to build it. We're going to be talking about our starting point in just a little bit, but everybody can develop this, which I think is great news, so we can go ahead and use this. Okay. So let's talk about how we can go ahead and develop the resiliency, how we can do this and help others. And then there's going to be a nice blurb pitch for some of the EAP stuff to help out. Because here's the thing, remember, we as human beings, we are not hardwired to do any of this alone. We're not. And so the more we're able to reach out and ask for help and connect with others, the better we are. Now, you may have noticed, I am a flaming extrovert. Okay. Introverts, this doesn't mean you have to get this huge social life when I talk about the connection to others. That's not what I mean. We need connections. We need intimate connection to other human beings. We're wired that way. And when I say intimate, it's about how we feel safe. We can trust somebody else. We can be vulnerable with somebody else. And we don't need a whole lot. 2 or 3 people, really. So did you know that almost 50% of adult Americans don't have a best friend?
Really? Wow.
We have a lot of social acquaintances.
That's probably, you don't think about that. That's probably, especially in this day and age.
Yes.
We all had best friends probably in elementary school, and they might have lasted 2 weeks, and then we're on to the new best friend.
Right.
You're right. As an adult, we don't necessarily have time. We have to put some time and work at it.
Right. And then it's a lot of acquaintances.
Correct.
But not that best. Not somebody we feel that truly. Which, by the way, a lot of times I'll have people say, and it's so sweet. They'll say, "I married my best friend." I'm like, "Oh, get a new best friend," because we need that person. Okay, but that's the thing is that, and that's the other thing, that everything we've been going through over the last few months, it's really hit us in terms of those connections as well, and it's really making it stand out that who do I have that I really feel safe with, right? So when we're talking about EAP, everything else like that, that can be part of those connections, right? We just need somebody that we feel safe with. And in these situations, a lot of us are discovering we don't have that support system. And that's what we're wired to do, okay? So I want to go ahead and start off by saying that we all have the capacity to be resilient, but everybody responds differently and everybody's coming from a different place. So one of the things when you're looking at developing your resilience, I want you to go ahead and kind of look at, be very compassionate with yourself, look at your starting point. And what I mean by this is that we don't all start, and where we are right now, we're not all in the same place. Some people were born into wonderfully supportive, healthy, resource-rich, safe environments where they were given the opportunity to experience life with that support and safety. And then people are on the other end of the continuum, they didn't get any of that, right? Very trauma-filled, abusive. Most of us are somewhere in the middle, okay? But we need to figure out where our starting point is, because that gives us a lot of information about how we respond to events and subsequent events. It's kind of like, have you ever whacked your shin really hard on like a table or something? You get that big old bruise, right? And of course, you whack your shin a gazillion other times. And every time you hit it, it's, ooh, that's so much tender, right? Okay. Things like trauma, mental health issues, previous stressors, that all influences that bruise, right? If we have that deep emotional bruise, it's harder and harder for us to go ahead and deal with that, okay? And so one of the things I really encourage all of us is we all should have a therapist. I mean, I'm a little biased, right? But because we get to work on that stuff, because we all have that baggage, and that, like I said, impacts where we are. So being aware of that gives you a lot of information about how you're going to respond. And it gives you a lot of information about what is natural, normal, healthy, and helpful for you.
Is it normal though to have to need somebody to talk to? So
yes,
that
it is.
as a guy, you know, I look at that and go, is that my macho-ness coming out? That my superpower is kind of taken away? If I have
that's part of it. Yeah. There's that cultural learning. Now, there are some differences, male-female differences in terms of brain function and stuff like that, including like the limbic system. Generally, not all the time, but generally the female brain has a larger, more developed limbic system, which is the seat of our emotions. So more things are related to emotion. But a lot of what you're talking about is boys don't cry, suck it up, rub some dirt in it, right?
You've met my dad, huh?
That. I did, yes. Yeah. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. He was in therapy with me because he was taught that as well.
Absolutely.
And there's a price. There's a price to pay for that. So, but the thing is, it doesn't have to be the all touchy-feely, I need a hug, my family of origin issues are coming up. I mean, if that's who you are, that's great. But to be able to say, I'm having feelings, I'm anxious, I'm concerned, and have somebody listen to it so you'd feel safe to do that. It doesn't have to be that, you know, like I said, all the mushy stuff, but think about how you connect with your male friends, right? There are rules around that, but there are ways that you do that. And I'm guessing that you feel emotionally, maybe you're not talking about it, but safe with some of those people.
I think that's what it is. It is the safety. You're right. Who do I have in my life that I'm safe talking with? That's not going to judge me. That's not going to ruin my professional career. All those kinds of things come up in play.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And think about all the things that we've been experiencing. We're even talking about it now. It's scrutinized, right? How did I say it? Did I say it the right way? You know, even something like an opinion on whether or not I should wear a mask. how I feel about going back to work, and the whole concept of social distancing. It becomes this really big thing. And that's another reason that it's impacting all of us, is because whether or not it's impacting us directly, it's impacting our systems, our communities. And we have that secondary result, right? So I want you to look at the baggage that you carry, the previous experiences, what tools and resources have you been given, so you know what your starting point is. And the reason I'm saying this is, number one, that can be helpful in terms of getting additional resources, but allows you to be, like I said, compassionate with yourself. So many of us beat ourselves up, right? And we're looking around because, we're kind of trying to judge, right? Am I doing this right? And we're looking around and nobody else seems to be struggling like we are. Well, that's because they have that mask on. I mean, not the mask on that our culture teaches us, that you don't talk about these things.
That is interesting, because that is true at every level. I work with CEOs and business owners, and sometimes I even feel like a therapist, and I am not the guy that holds hands and sings Kumbaya.
Right.
But they don't have anybody else to talk to. They don't have anybody that they feel safe around, because they're supposed to be all knowledgeable. And they really aren't. We're all fallible humans.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And so this is, we're getting really hard because of our cultural beliefs that impact us. And that's another reason it's hitting our culture so significantly, is because it's going at that, right? The other thing that it's hitting is, in terms of resilience, is that we really need to go ahead and focus on our strengths. And a lot of times we're taught we don't have them. Or we're taught the things that are good about us are not socially valued. Like, for example, I myself have ADHD. That's a disability. I mean, like, it's a legitimate, there's a insurance billing code and everything for it, right? It's a disability. Folks, it's my flippin' superpower.
Oh, yeah.
I can do things with my brain that you normal people wish you could.
But you've learned how to use that to your advantage. Everybody has something. They just have to figure out what it is.
Exactly. And sometimes that something, we're up against that other barrier that people are telling us it's not a good thing, like ADHD. I mean, because it was harder in school, and I was told I was supposed to be someone I wasn't supposed to be. So not only need to be aware of our starting point, we need to be aware that we all have strengths. We all have gifts and talents and assets, but sometimes we don't know them because we've been taught something completely different. Folks, I have worked with over the last 22 years, tens of thousands of people. I have never, not once, never met someone, a human being, who did not have strengths, talents, gifts, skills, assets. Not one. For fun, I used to volunteer. I used to do anger management at a maximum security prison.
Wow.
Yeah. Think about what our society says about people who are incarcerated.
Yeah.
I have never, not once, met a human being who did not have strengths, skills, talent, assets, gifts, not once. Okay. But again, what are we taught? And if we're taught that we don't have these strengths, we will stay in survival versus going to the thriving. And we'll be stuck there, because how do we move out of it if we don't have strengths? There's nothing we can do about it. Right. One of the things that I see a lot with my clients is some core beliefs that they hold. And these are, like I said, these are core. These are subconsciously held. They impact everything. And it's a pretty simple core belief. And it's a belief that they are worth less, that they're worth less than other people, that they're worth less than other people's time, that they're worth less than things or tasks or money. Or think about how often you've been told that or something like that. Okay. It's really hard to thrive when you have that. So we kind of want to figure out where we are so we can be gentle with ourselves, so we can support ourselves, and now we can have something we can work with. Right. And so I want you to, this is your part of your homework assignment. I want you to start writing down your strengths, not what you should be or people have told you is valuable, but who you really are. And there's plenty of resources. I'm a professional speaker. There are plenty of resources out there, like Tom Rath's StrengthsFinder 2.0. One of the books that I recommend all the time, I love it. It's by a colleague of mine named David Rendell, called Freak Factor. What makes us weird makes us wonderful. And he has Freak Factor for kids as well. Okay, excellent. So what are your strengths? You're going to need that. We're going to go ahead and develop that. Okay. The other thing I want you to be aware of is that I'm saying that bruise and it keeps building up. This stuff can keep building up to the point where it can actually change our brain. Okay. A lot of us have heard of post-traumatic stress disorder, okay, PTSD. And what medical professionals, mental health professionals, what we've noticed forever is that we'd have patients come into our practices and they'd have all the symptoms of PTSD, but they never experienced an acute trauma. Like they hadn't gone off to war or been assaulted or victim of natural disaster. They had all the symptoms. And what we've discovered is that, I mean, we've already known that, but research validates now that when a person's under constant, consistent stress for a long enough period of time, and it varies from person to person, when they're under constant, consistent stress for a long enough period of time, it builds up. And eventually the brain and the body will respond as if they had experienced an acute trauma, like they got shot at. And the diagnosis for that is CPTSD, complex PTSD. So those of us in the mental health field, we're expecting, and we're already starting to see it, an increase in people with trauma stuff because of all this constant, consistent stress. Now, I'm not saying this to freak you out. What I'm saying is now's the time. Now's the time today we get to start doing something about it so we can help with this. So it doesn't have to build up, right? We can go ahead and deal with that. So because we don't want this to build up and then have CPTSD, because it will affect us. Okay, if we don't deal with that, eventually there's a price for everything. Okay, so
that's normal, right? I mean, everybody probably has a buildup of stress, but
yes.
The last 4 months have been exacerbating that.
Yes, it has been. So so that's why we're seeing the spike, the peak in trauma stuff with our patients, with our clients. Because, and I know we've overused this term, but this really is unprecedented. I mean, we have not experienced this to this extent. None of us have. I mean, even if you were around for the 1919 pandemic, right? This is different. Okay. So how do we deal with this? Right? Okay. So this is bad. Oh my gosh, if I don't do something, I'm going to get CPTSD. How do we deal with it? We focus on 5 things. The first is safety, connectedness, calming, competence, and hope. So let's go ahead and talk about those things. Safety is obviously that, and that's the survival. Okay. Surviving, folks, is not bad. That's a good thing. We want to get to the thriving. Okay. But surviving is not bad. And here's the thing. When we're talking about survival, we're talking about safety and security. It's everything. It's not just physical. It's not just emotional. It's everything. It's all parts. Now we have a tendency to separate ourselves out, right? So if something's going on with my body, I see my body doctor. If something's going on with my feelings, I see my feelings doctor. But it's all here. Okay. As a matter of fact, there's a field of study that addresses this. And this is actually one of my favorite words. So if you're taking notes, go ahead and start on the left side of your page. I'm going to spell it for you. Ready? Okay, here we go.
Yeah.
PSYCHONEURO IMMUNOLOGY. Psychoneuroimmunology.
Califragilisticexpialidocious.
Exactly. I try to get a little movement in that,
Okay.
right? Now, this is also known as PNI. And I know PNI would have been easier to say, but I sound really, really smart when I spell psychoneuroimmunology.
Or when you say it.
I know, right? I can say that without stuttering. That's pretty cool. So breaking it down, ology is study of. Psycho is not your ex. Psycho is your mind. Neuro is brain and nervous system, and immunes are our immune system, our body. Our psychoneuroimmunology is the study of the mind-brain-body connection. If we're not physically safe, if we're having physical anything, it affects our emotional state and vice versa. Okay, it's all connected. And so one of the things that we need to do, and this is why that secondary stuff can be so powerful, right? It's not happening to us, it's physically happening to somebody else, but we emotionally respond, right? So that's why it's impactful. We want to make sure that when we're looking at safety, it's all of that. So that we're physically safe, we're emotionally safe. We have those connections. We're part of a community, okay? So we can connect. And that way too, we can get the support, we can get the resources, okay? Whatever we need to do. So the first thing we got to do is we got to survive. We got to get through this, okay? And the beautiful thing is that you've survived up to this point. So you already have some skills, okay? So we just get through this moment. We're going to go ahead and survive. And then once we get through there, this is when the opportunity really comes. We're going to learn how to thrive. So as we're going through this, what we're learning, how did I do this? We want to remember, because here's the thing, we forget. right? When we learn and we survive, sometimes we forget that we did it because it just becomes normal, right? It's kind of like tying your shoes. I don't know if you remember this. For some of us, this was a really long time ago, but the rabbit through the hole and everything, it was hard, right? You had to pay really close attention. And now you don't even think about it. Okay.
Well, the last few months, we haven't even really been wearing shoes, right?
I've been in flip-flops. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't know if I can tie my shoes anymore if I have to get them on. Because, I haven't gone to the gym because the gym's been closed. Right? So, yeah, but we get to recognize that if we survive, there's a reason. Okay, so how do we do that? Now, how do we get to thriving?
Can I ask a question while we're on safety?
Yes.
How does the recent unrest, how does that, social justice, unrest, and things going on in the news every day, how does that fit into the safety part of P&I?
Well, it's huge. For many reasons. So it can be for example, the video of Mr. Floyd's murder, and it was going around social media. And finally, after a couple of days, I put some messages out saying, hey, folks, recognize this is very triggering for some people to see this. Can we not keep reposting the video? And so for people of color, for Black people, I mean, this is their experience in many ways, but to see it again and again, right? It can be hard. And then also we've seen, unfortunately, an increase in additional hostility, right, toward people of color. And that's triggering the previous stuff. And then for some of us, it's like, okay, I care for these other human beings. And now I'm being bombarded with this information that these other human beings aren't safe. And so vicariously, it impacts me, right? And just walking outside, whether it's due to COVID, whether it's due to, okay, are there going to be riots? What's going to happen? It puts us all into that high alert. And so one of the things I recommend is choose the information that gets into your brain. Okay, the media is really important. Choose the information that gets into your brain and keep your brain safe, right? Being bombarded with this, I don't watch the news, and I check social media I check it in the morning, at night. That's about it. I mean, if the zombie apocalypse occurs in the middle of that, somebody will text me. I'll be fine. I'll figure it out. Okay.
We'll see it on Twitter, right?
We'll see. Absolutely. Right. Because here's one of the things. We have filtering systems in our brain to keep us safe. One of the primary ones is the reticular activating system, right? Another nice long word, reticular activating system. And it protects us. It filters out stuff that's not necessary, right? For safety, for interest, whatever it is. Look at what we're bombarding our filter. Okay, our filter's in overdrive trying to protect us with this. Okay, and that's exhausting. And so it's important to be informed. It's important to get this information. It's important that we're creating healthy communities, physically, psychologically, right? All that. Be gentle with yourself. Protect your brain with that, because people are being overwhelmed, whether the pandemic, whether systemic racism directly affects them or not. We're still feeling it. Okay.
That's a great takeaway, because when I thought about safety originally, when you said that, I'm thinking about I'm safe in my house. Mm-hmm. It is much more than that. That's the thing we do without even thinking, being physically safe. The rest of that is stuff we have to learn to take care of that safety.
And the thing is because it's all connected, right? P&I, we can be physically safe in reality, but not feel physically safe. I don't know if any of you have ever had a panic attack. It feels like you're going to die, right? I mean, so you might be literally, oh, I'm okay, but it doesn't feel like it for a lot of us, okay? And that's, again, where we get to go ahead and address all those areas of it, okay? And that's where a lot of us are now.
That's where you need that person that you trust to let you know that's okay, because I hear people say, well, what are you worried about? You live in the burbs. There is no riot across the street in the burbs. Right. But it's on TV, and it's everything you read and everything you hear. And that emotional, psychological safety is the key.
Yep. Okay. It is. Absolutely. Okay. And so how do we deal with that? Well, we make those connections, right? We make those connections with people that we feel safe. That true intimacy where we can trust somebody, okay? The other thing is that we're all spiritual creatures. Now, I don't mean religious, right? Spirituality and religion are two very different things. Because I think we all know some religious people that aren't spiritual at all, okay?
Right.
What spirituality is, and this is a human need, what spirituality is a need to connect to something greater than ourselves. And some people find that in religion, okay? Some people find it in nature. Some people find it in purpose or community or family, or we need this. A great resource for this, as some of you might be familiar with, it's a true classic, Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. He was a psychiatrist that was in Auschwitz. And he talks about what he noticed. Now, he came from a different perspective, right? A psychiatrist. But what he noticed is that the physical conditions of people didn't always accurately indicate how long they would live. Man's search for meaning. We need a connection to something greater than ourselves. Okay? And look what all these situations are doing. They're testing that. They're breaking that connection. They're showing us, you thought you were connected, but you weren't, right? And so and part of it is because we're taught that, like, with the connection to something greater than ourselves, community, friends, family, that we hang out with them, right? We go out for coffee with our friend, we hang out with our grandma for dinner, and now we can't do that. And so that's impacting us as well, all those restrictions. And that's why a lot of people are going against the recommendations, because they're feeling that disconnect, and it can be traumatic, absolutely traumatic, okay? So one of the first things we do is that we find that connectedness, that intimacy, and we find that hope, that spiritual connection, that's something greater than ourselves, that we're there, okay? And you'll notice this isn't just what we're going through now. This is part of the human experience. It's in our face right now. Right? So again, this is the opportunity for us to look at what's in front of us and say, what am I going to take? What am I taking beyond here? Okay. And this is a very powerful lesson. I'm guessing that you're becoming more aware of the people that matter to you, your priorities, the things that you feel really connected to. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so when this is over, we want to continue feeding that. Right? Okay, so the first thing we do is we develop that intimacy. We feed into that spirituality. And when we've been in that rut, a lot of times we're not putting energy into this. We're not putting focus into that. We're putting focus into the very next task that we need to do, which is great. You're being very productive, okay? But it's not fulfilling human needs. The other thing to recognize, and this is why it's also hard for a lot of people, is that part of this connectedness is work. A boss of mine I had, amazing guy, we were talking about, this is when I was working in the addictions field, and we were talking about how work was such a big deal for folks. Like we could have people come into treatment that their lives were just a shambles, but work, they were still putting their energy into it. I'm like, why is that? And what Dan said, he said, protect the supply. What do you mean? He says, well, look what work provides us. Work provides us with money, right? But it also provides us with focus and goals and value and worth and identity and esteem.
Structure.
Right? All that stuff. And so now this is impacting our work. Maybe in terms of whether we have a job, whether we're going to keep our job, our spouses, our family members, but also how is it just impacting our work in general, okay? And that can be huge. So the workplace, creating healthy systems in the workplaces is an incredibly powerful tool. Having the workplaces be healthy systems, it contributes so much to the larger systems and the individuals as well, because work is very powerful for us. It has a lot of meaning, okay? And so we want to go ahead and make sure that we can create those healthy systems at work, because
how we identify ourselves, don't we? I mean,
it is.
Yeah.
And whether we have value and worth. I mean, how many times, especially with guys, you meet them, they say their name and what they do.
What they do. I'm changing. I'm going to say my superpower.
What is your superpower?
I don't know.
Okay, once you figure out what it is. Okay.
Figure out what it is. Now
Absolutely.
I know I need to figure out what it is.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely. Oh, I would love that. I would love that if you do that. Okay. Okay. So
It's going on
you
my
make it through.
LinkedIn profile too, right? It'll be.
Yes. Yes. Y'all should do that. I think that would be great. Because think about it. Think about if you knew that about the person, you know now more about the person, which is what we need, right? I love it. Okay. So we're surviving. We're developing the intimacy, the spirituality. Now we're going to go ahead and start to handle this. Okay. We're going to start to calm down. So first of all, be realistic about what's going on. Okay. One thing that is, we can absolutely do it all, just not all at once. And we're trying to do it all at once. And it's not possible. And so just be gentle with yourself, have some realistic expectations of what's going on. When we're all stressed out, everything gets impacted, our energy level, our brain function, our emotional ability to handle situations. So be realistic. Dan, my boss, that had said, protect the supply, he implemented a policy. Because sometimes, have you ever had a day where you weren't sick, but you wish you were, because you could justify, calling in? Yes.
For mental health day, right?
Well, here's our code, because we actually had a phrase for this, right? So if we needed one of those days, we would call in and say, hello, I have something in my eye. I can't see myself coming to work today.
I like that.
No, right? And that was the code. And the thing was, it didn't come out of any of our time off, right? It didn't come out of our PTO. And the rest of the team rallied. Because you know what? To be honest, if you're not at your best, why don't you not come in? And this way, if you take your time off today, you'll be there for me next month when I need it. Right? Okay. So take that mental health day. Take that time. We need it. Okay. And so give yourself permission to do that. Okay. The other thing is that we actually want to change our stress, because there's positive and negative stress. Okay. There's negative stress, which is distress, and it's distressing. Okay. Positive stress, the word for it is eustress, EUSTRESS, and it's motivating, right? That's what gets us excited. Okay. The beautiful thing is that the difference between the two, it's not the situation. The situation will trigger all this stuff, right? Okay. But whether it's positive or negative stress, the situation in many ways is irrelevant. Okay. It's kind of like, I think most of us would say winning the lottery would be a positive stress, right? Do you remember when Powerball or Mega Millions, whatever it was over $1 billion? Remember that?
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely. I still have the winning ticket that I didn't.
Oh, yeah. You need to, it expired. You can't do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, people were buying all these tickets. I bought 2 tickets, because that increases your odds or whatever.
$2 billion, right? Hey.
Right, exactly. Double the fun. And, but have you ever heard people that come into a lot of money, like winning a lottery or an inheritance? Over 50% of them say it's the worst thing that ever happened to them.
Yep.
Right?
I've heard that.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, whenever it gets really high, I'll buy a ticket so I can prove that it can be a good thing for me, right? Yeah, I'll show you.
Another
right.
50%, right?
Right, exactly. Because it's not the situation. The difference between positive and negative stress is perceived control. That's it. Look at all the stuff we can't control. Okay, yeah. No wonder we're stressed. Perceived control. What can we do about it? So one of the things that you can do, and this sounds really, really so simple, almost to the level of being silly, but it's really effective. When you're feeling the going on, okay, first of all, breathe. I'm going to teach you how to do that in just a moment, okay? The second thing is ask yourself, you might even say it out loud so you can hear your voice. What can I do right now? Okay, it changes the way your brain's functioning. What can I do right now? That brings the power back to here, and it's focusing on what I can control. Because in all these situations, we can control, at the very least, our response. And so when I'm kind of joking, that the situation is giving us an opportunity, it really is, because it's really giving us the chance to look at what we can do. So in these moments, okay, what can I do right now? And it changes the negative stress to positive stress. This also means we let go of the things we can't do anything about. Okay, I mean, it's not about avoidance or anything else. It's like, you know what? If I can't do anything about it, why get upset? Okay, I'm gonna put my energy into something that I can actually do something about. And one of the things we can do is we can breathe. Okay, now, if you've ever met me before, if you've attended any of my trainings, I've taught you how to do this. This is so important. I teach it to everybody. I actually got laid over at O'Hare once for 9 hours. And I did a little stress management thing for everybody there. And I taught all of them. Okay, I'm going to teach you how to breathe. And some of you are thinking, but I'm breathing. Yes, you are. That's good. I'm glad you're surviving. But you might not be breathing correctly. Okay, so I'm going to teach you how to breathe. So first of all, like, you go ahead and raise your hands over your head like this and stretch out your spine. Good. Okay, don't hurt yourself. Now, when you lower your arms, relax your shoulders, but keep your spine elongated. So nice, soft shoulders, long spine. This is proper posture. I grew up with nuns. I know this. For those of you that are Catholic, you know this too, right? Okay. This is not the way we typically sit and stand. Okay. Now we have proper posture, we can actually breathe. So what I want you to do is I want you to imagine that there's a string coming from your belly button. And when you inhale, when you breathe in, that string pulls your tummy out. So breathe in, belly out. That's called diaphragmatic or belly breathing. Activates your parasympathetic nervous system. Opiates and dopamine start flowing. Feels good, right? Most of us, though, we're all stressed out. And when we breathe in, our tummies go in. That's called crisis breathing. You've probably heard of it as fight or flight. Activates our sympathetic nervous system. Adrenaline and cortisol start flowing. Do we really want to add adrenaline to this stuff? Right? Cortisol, if you have too much cortisol in your system, there's a lot of funky things, like it affects brain function, like memory, right? Have you noticed you can't remember anything lately? Stress response, okay? So it affects brain function, it dings our immune system, which we don't want to be doing, okay? And it forces our body to go into crisis, a very specific type of crisis that makes our body retain fat, specifically belly fat. Your breathing is making you fat. And some of you are thinking,
That's what it is. Oh, I know. Hey, now I'm not so stressed. It's only breathing.
That's right. Exactly. Okay. Which, by the way, the breathing is also a great conflict management tool. So, you know, the person that drives you crazy, you might be living with them right now. Yeah. And you see them walking towards you and you're already, they haven't even said anything. Just breathe. Get those arms a flapping and that look on your face and they'll walk away. So what can you do? What can I do right now? Because there is something you do. And now, once you know what your strengths are, even better, you get to use them, right? So like when I'm doing so many webinars a week and I have technical issues, it just happens, right? Especially with the amount of webinars that I'm doing. Well, you know what? As the tech stuff is going and stuff is going in the chat and this is happening and this is happening and this is happening, my ADHD brain is handling it just fine because that's my normal. There's so much going on right now that I can pull out my strengths. What can I do right now? I have an idea. Okay. We're going to change the negative stress to positive stress. And what that does is that it calms that overall survival mode stress response. It might actually give us some more energy, some more focus, but it's the positive stuff. It's the stuff that feels good. It's when you're excited to become better, right? And at the very least, it's the satisfaction that you can do and you will do something. Okay.
Well, you can even do that in the middle of a meeting.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great.
Yes, but thinking about, you know, what's going on and you feel it going on, you can change it. Nobody will even know, right, what you're doing. Absolutely. Okay. So we're going to start to make those changes. And as you are going through just general stress management stuff, right? So make sure that you're breathing, make sure that you're eating well, make sure that you're getting sleep, 7.5 hours of uninterrupted sleep, right? Make sure that you're moving, you're getting the exercise, okay? All those things, because as we calm our bodies, we take care of our body, it affects everything else, okay? So focus on that. One of the things I want you to do as well is I want you to go ahead and create routines of self-care. Doesn't have to be much, doesn't have to be hours every day, a couple minutes. And I really recommend it in the morning, at night, that you start your day and you end your day with something for you, some self-care, just a couple minutes. In my house, I take a bubble bath every night. It's not always the 2-hour bubble bath that I'd like. Sometimes it's only 20 minutes, but it's not negotiable. It's going to happen. And when that door is closed, you do not knock on the door. You do not call my name. You do not text me. You do not message me. You do not think of me. Unless the house is on fire. And even then I'm going to consider it because I'm in a bathtub. Okay. That's just the way it is. Okay. And so I want you to include that, because think about how you would feel, right, in terms of just overall stress. Okay. When you're focusing on that. Okay. And then as you're doing this, you recognize we continue to build on our strengths. What can I do right now? And I do that. What can I do right now? And I do that. What can I do right now? And eventually you're going to be focusing, you're going to be creating that activation of the filter. You're going to be creating a mindset. You're going to be literally changing your mind about who you are and what you are capable of and what your focus is. Because that's the other thing, is that when you're doing this, you're starting to put all the focus on the solutions. If we stay in the problem, we stay in survival. We don't want to ignore the problem. That's not good. That's not helpful, right? Okay. One of the reasons we're experiencing what we're experiencing is because people have ignored the problem for too long, right? Okay. Don't want to do that. But once we've identified the problem, we want to move into the solution. So we want to develop that sense of competence. What can I do right now? What can I do right now? Okay. And have that strengths-based focus, that solution focus. Sometimes when we can't, because the problem is too big, breaking it down, right? I think we've all heard the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, right? Or how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, okay? And that's why what can I do right now can be really powerful, because so much of what we experience now is actually influenced by the past and the present, and it's overwhelming, okay? And we can't do anything about the past, really. It's over, and we can prepare for the present, but that's about it, okay? What we can do is right now, okay? Most of our stress, tension, all that is the influence of these two. Because think about it. Have you ever gotten upset with somebody because they did something? But if you really looked at it, it's not because they did something. It's because they did that something 629 times, right? I joke that I divorced my first husband because he wouldn't put his socks in the laundry hamper. And that wasn't it. It was 13 years of stuff. But there was one night he didn't put his socks in the laundry hamper. I'm like, we've talked about this. How hard is it's 2-inch? And I filed for divorce the next day. It was the straw that broke the camel's back, right? So how much, remember, do you have that bruise? How much of today is influenced by your baggage? And how much of today are you future tripping? Have you ever been so worried about something that you actually lost your appetite? I mean, I'm the other way. I've never done that. When I'm stressed out, I eat. If it's slow enough for me to catch, I'm going to eat it. And it's never the healthy stuff. It's not like asparagus, right? It's ice cream and pizza. But has it ever impacted your appetite or impacted your sleep?
Absolutely.
And then it never happened, right? So again, we can be aware because we want to be prepared. We're not naive, right? And what can I do right now? Okay.
Our brains allow us to awfulize lots of things.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And how much of that actually occurs? How much of that is real? So much of it's not. And then we're in that survival again. It's almost as if we're in that situation that we're stressing about and it isn't even happening. Okay. And so I go ahead and break it down. Okay. The big picture, what are the smaller steps? What are the smaller things, right? How are we going to eat this elephant? And what can I do right now? And actually doing something, which includes things like volunteering, helping other people, taking action. If you've been in therapy in the last 20 years, chances are your therapist has used a modality like cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, dialectic behavioral therapy, DBT, or rational motive behavioral therapy, REBT. And what they all have in common is they all address the relationship between our thoughts and beliefs, our feelings, and our behaviors. Okay, they all interact with each other. So taking action, make sure we have the right thoughts, taking action, those two will directly impact our emotions. Okay, and then we can turn it into that positive stress because we know we can, right? That competence. If you believe that you can't do it, Henry Ford said, if you think you can or you can't, you're usually correct.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So what are you thinking? Okay, and you've made it this far. Okay. Then when we go ahead and do that, we do want to focus on work. That's a big thing for a lot of us, right? The connections, the relationships, the identity, and just getting back into that routine. It's very powerful, okay? So 2 things. One, what can we do to kind of normalize what's going on? Not ignoring the problem, but getting through that day. The other thing is, what are we going to take here in this experience and bring back? So a couple of the webinars I had earlier today, that was the focus of the discussion is, what we found, we're actually more productive. We're hitting more of our goals with all this telework stuff. So maybe we should figure out why that is. And so we can keep doing it, right? Because we're opening up the offices. We're going to be back soon. We don't want to lose this.
Probably a lot less meetings, right?
That's one of the things they said. A lot less meetings, a lot less just random interruptions. If you have to talk to somebody, you have to make an appointment for it. And one of the things that came up in the first one this morning that I really loved is that people are being a lot more aware of communication barriers. So they're being a lot better at communicating. So there's a lot less misinterpretation, misunderstanding, and they're being better, right? So one of the things we want to go ahead and do is take that power and say, this is working. We're going to take it with us, right? How does that feel? Okay, it feels very empowering. It feels very solution focused, okay? Again, this is the opportunity for us to be better, okay? So work is absolutely huge for this, okay? And then make sure that when I was talking about the feelings, the thoughts and beliefs and the behaviors, be aware of the words that go through our head, okay? Because those activate that filter. If you say you can, you can't, right? You're probably true because that's what you do. So I want you, and this is why affirmations and stuff can be so powerful. The beautiful thing about affirmations is that you don't actually have to believe them for them to work. You just have to be willing to believe that someday you will believe them for them to work. Words are very powerful. Starting about the age of 3 years old, our brains start to process information linguistically in words. And so if we can't put a word to it, it's really hard for our brain to process it. So that's another reason I'm glad we're talking about all this stuff because we're putting it into words, okay? The words used, did you know, because we have machines that can measure brain function now, did you know when a person says, he made me mad, certain parts of the brain light up, okay? When the same person says, I am mad, different parts of the brain light up. It's actually a different process, right? And think about positive and negative stress. He made me mad, that's negative stress.
Because you can't
right?
control it. Somebody
Right.
did it to you. Okay.
Right. I am mad. That's about me. I can
Taking
do something
ownership.
about me. Right.
Okay.
And it is a different brain function. Different parts of the brain are activated. Okay. So I want you to be aware of the words that you say and then write down the words that you want to believe. Right. That's how you want your brain to function. And sometimes, let's face it, we figure out what we want by recognizing what we don't want. There's a lot going on right now that we don't want. Okay, so what do we want? Okay, so again, this is a real opportunity to examine, get out of that rut and really examine what our priorities are, what's important to us, what aligns with our values, our morals, our ethics, because that's all part of how we see the world and our place in it. Okay, so start thinking, listening to yourself, and then replacing those unhelpful beliefs with something that's helpful. Okay, that is strengths-based. Okay, go ahead and look at that. Lovely quote about being connected. The friend who can be silent with us in a moment of confusion or despair, who can stay with us in an hour of grief and bereavement, who can tolerate not knowing, not healing, not curing, that is a friend indeed. Okay. One of the biggest things that we've seen is this disconnect is really getting at a lot of us. Okay. Because we need that connection. So not only do we need this is how we support other people too. The best thing you can do for other people is to listen. It's absolutely the best thing. There's nothing. Folks, there have been so many times I've been with a client in a 60-minute session, and for 60 minutes, there was nothing for me to say, so I wouldn't say anything. Over 90% of the time, at the end of the session, my client would be like, Grace, that was the best session we've ever had. I didn't say. And at first, when this first started happening, I'm like, but I didn't say anything. After a while, I'm like, and I didn't say anything. Yeah. It is. It is. It's hard.
Guys don't do that well. I work with my CEOs. I've learned to tell them they need to ask, is this a fix or a feel with their spouse? Because you don't know. Guys want to fix it. Just get to the problem. Right. We can fix it.
Right, exactly.
I don't need a fix. I just need a feel.
Just need to listen. Right, exactly. Very good. I like that. I'm going to steal that. Absolutely. Yeah, it is true. And that's what people need, right? And we can go ahead and tell them, I can tell that's important to you. I'm so sorry for what you're experiencing, okay? but sometimes we just need to be there to create that safe space, right? As a mental health professional, so often it's not there for me to fix it. I can't fix it anyway, but to create that safe space where people can feel that, okay? Which means sometimes we sit in silence. Whoa, we Americans are not comfortable with silence,
That's
right? You know, I used to live up in Alaska, and I was given the opportunity to work with some of the Native Athabascan tribes. And one of the things about the Native Alaskan culture is that they actually do listen. It's amazing. They're taught this in their culture. So when I'm talking, they would be actually listening to what I was saying. And then when I was done talking, they'd wait just to make sure I was done. And then they'd actually think about their response. Sometimes if I would ask them a question, it could take up to a minute for them to say something. 60 seconds of silence.
They weren't sitting there figuring out their response while you were talking about your issue.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a concept.
They must have read Stephen Covey's book, right? About listening to understand versus listening to respond, right? Yeah, okay. But I actually had a session one time with one of the village elders, and for the hour session, between the two of us, we spoke 12 sentences. It was an amazingly productive session, right? But yeah, we're not good with silence. And sometimes we just need to do that, okay? And we listen to them. It's about them. It's not about us necessarily giving advice or telling them they're right or wrong. And sometimes we just need to let them know, have your feelings. Let them have it, okay? Because we're taught the opposite of that as well, right? We're taught we need to shut down the bad feelings. We're not supposed to feel fear or anger or sadness or depression, or there's medication for all of that, right? Okay. The problem is that we are experiencing these feelings. These feelings are actually chemical reactions in our body. And if we don't feel them, those chemicals build up and they get all nasty, all pussy. I mean, not literally, but how about that for visual, right? Okay. So, and then offer, if they want, offer the help. And you can ask, do you want my help? Right? Have the resources. And the resources, again, I'm biased, but it should always include therapy. We all need therapy, right? We need somebody that can kind of stand on the outside and guide us on there, okay? Please don't give advice if it's not asked for, because sometimes that just enhances that feeling because they might have tried it. Please also don't say, I know exactly how you feel, because you don't. I mean, even if you experience the exact same situation, which statistically is unlikely, you're not feeling it in the moment, okay? And we don't want to tell people what they're experiencing. Well, I can tell you're really angry about this. Maybe they don't identify it as anger, or they don't feel safe enough with you yet to be angry, right? So we want to go ahead and say, like, I can tell this is important to you. I can tell you're having feelings about that. And they shut up and you listen, okay? The other thing is that there are a lot of things that we do to try to cheer people up. Like, look on the bright side. Well, sometimes there is no bright side, okay? And sometimes we try to join, like, oh, well, we're all feeling this. If you're listening to them, we're making it about them, okay? We're not making it about everybody else. And so they get to experience that. We get to let them experience that, okay? Without adding those other layers that distract from their experience.
And that silence is a very difficult learned skill.
Yes.
I use it a lot, allow the silence to do the heavy lifting.
Mm-hmm.
But it is a very uncomfortable, and you don't know how long 10 seconds is until you've sat silent for 10 seconds.
It's an eternity. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm. It really is. Yeah. So imagine a minute of that. And sometimes that's what we need to do. Okay. So listening is the best skill you can develop. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Now with our kids, we need to talk. We need to give them the words. A lot of times they don't know the words. And for your littles, they don't know the words at all. They don't know, well, Mother, due to dopamine imbalances in my brain, I am feeling, I think it's a mix between possibly a dysthymic response, right? Okay. But you know what your 3-year-old can tell you? Where they're feeling it in their body, right? My tummy's upset and I have a lot of words in my mouth. You bet. Okay. So we're listening. We're giving them the words they can because they don't have the words, and let them have their feelings. Let them be kids. Sometimes my 11-year-old just needs to cry and have snot everywhere. If it were socially acceptable, I'd do that too. Okay. Let them.
In the bubble bath.
In the bubble bath. Well, because you do it in a shower, because then it just kind of all goes, right? Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. Right. Okay. Recognize they're coming from a different place, especially your teenagers. right? Your teenager looks all grown up, right? My 19-year-old, taller than me, looks all grown up. Not grown up, okay? Our brains continue to develop into our mid-20s. And so if you've noticed that they seem to be like regressing, or they have these, like your 15-year-old just needs constant reassurance because they might
Especially
look grown
boys,
up.
right?
You know what? A lot of times it is the boys because they don't know how to talk about this because they've never been told,
Absolutely.
right? You know, and so that it's going to, and also look at all the group activities that boys are used to doing, right? The sports, and that it hasn't been. Okay. So have the discussions, and no matter how silly you might think their concern is, remember it's valid for them. So do what you can, connect to them, use the words that you can share with them, let them express their feelings, make it about them, listen, okay? Have their input, give them that sense of control, right? We need to wash our hands a lot. How do you think we should do that? When I broached that with my 11-year-old, she said, we should get some good smelling essential oils because we do a lot of essential oils. I'm like, oh, okay. She was like, bubble gum. I said, well, it's not an essential oil, but we got a bunch of oils. We added it to our hand sanitizer so it doesn't smell alcohol-y. It smells like bubble gum. But, right?
It
We're doing a
works.
bunch of stuff. It works. Absolutely. Okay. So just in general, and with teens, recognize, right, brain function. The other thing is that our adolescents are going through something called individuation, which means they're separating, they're psychologically separating, developmentally separating from us. They're supposed to be doing that. And so as all these feelings are coming up, you might see them kind of pushing you away and then need a lot of reassurance and then pushing you away. That's normal. Okay, so we want to make sure we're giving them as much space as possible where they feel safe, right? Sitting at the dinner table saying, tell me about your day. How are you feeling? Probably not going to go over real well, okay? But driving, you're not making eye contact, it's amazing what might come up, okay?
I recently had a 4.5-hour drive with my 24-year-old. No phones, no text, no radio, just talk. It was interesting.
Yes, it was. And I'm guessing you found out things that you had no idea.
Absolutely. Yes. Good,
Right?
very good conversation. Very enlightening.
Yep. Absolutely. So we want to go ahead and provide that. The other thing is make sure that they're aware of the resources for them, because sometimes, because you're the parent, they don't want to talk to you because they're concerned what you might think of them.
Right.
And so offering up a counselor and everything else, you might be surprised at how they might jump at the chance to do that. Okay. So make sure you're offering the resources to them.
And the funny part is they make up their own weird reality of what you would think of them. And you look at that and go, how in the world did you ever think that?
Right.
But it is their reality. You're right.
It is the reality. It's valid. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. Now here's the other thing, and hopefully you'll never have to do this. If you think anybody, your kids, coworker, whatever, that they're to the point where they're going to hurt themselves, you call 911. Right. I've had people say, well, I wasn't sure. I didn't want to embarrass them. Well, not to be crude, but would you rather them be embarrassed or dead? Okay. And so be aware. Okay. We're going to be aware of the resources, even to that point, listening all the way to getting other people involved. Okay. And then I hope that you're all familiar with your EAP. Okay. And your work-life services. So any of this stuff, okay, you can talk to somebody. It's completely confidential. It's free. It's not part of your health insurance. Okay. Make sure it's available 24/7, 365. Make sure you're available, that this is a resource for everybody. Okay.
And if I take advantage of that, does my boss know?
Oh, I hope so.
But do they find out that?
Oh, no. I hope they're available. They know that the services are available, but no, they don't. It's completely confidential. It's not like a report's written of, who it's accessing the services. It's a completely separate, HR doesn't even get any information on it.
It doesn't go in my health insurance. It doesn't go in my health records. Nobody, this is nothing. A confidential. Okay. That's great.
Right. Now, if you're referred to, like if you need additional services and you're referred to a therapist that you're going with your insurance, then it's all the HIPAA stuff and everything else like that. But no, this is confidential. Okay. It's not accessed anything at work. Okay. Because sometimes, right, being able to talk about people at work, like our boss, we might have fear of repercussions.
Well, even somebody that's going to help you to guide you to the right service is helpful, because when you're in the middle of it, you really can't think about it.
No, we don't know what we don't know.
Correct.
Right. So going to the person that knows about this, right. And I mean, it really is everything. So every day-to-day stuff, if you need anything, the resources are there. So like some of the resources that, again, I hope you never have to access are things like finding a homeless shelter or disaster relief services, or, you know, really, really anything for the work-life stuff. It's available to you. Okay. And in general, when we do all of this stuff, we become better. And then we start focusing on, when we're in survival, we have tunnel vision. Our filter's focused on the problem. When we're thriving, we're broadening our filter and we're actually seeing the rest of life that's out there, right? So we can laugh and still be concerned about what's going on. We can joke around with our friends. We can sleep really well. We can really enjoy life and still recognize the multiple crises we are experiencing. Okay, so we want to go ahead and broaden this. And as we're doing this, as we're thriving, this organically happens. It literally changes our brain to how we see the world, how we interact with the world. It changes our reality. Okay, and so I want you to think about if you lived a life that you felt that you were fulfilled, that you were empowered, that you had an impact on your life and those around you. And you live that every single day, right? So make sure that you're taking care of yourself all around, psychoneuroimmunology, okay? Focus on those strengths, how you're going to thrive in this situation, and that'll allow us to keep a better perspective of what's going on, because this is important. Yes, it is, but there's so much more out there, okay? So what I want you to go ahead and do is I want you to go ahead and take a couple things, just a couple, not 57, please. No overachievers right now. One or two things that really stood out for you today. Like, oh yeah, that would be good. I want you to write it down.
Finding my superpower, right?
Yes, exactly. And then put it on your LinkedIn. Yes.
Put it on my that's my big takeaway.
That is your big takeaway. Perfect, right? Because that's going to change things. All right. So write it down. Piece of paper, note card, envelope, napkin, whatever, and then look at it a bunch, multiple times a day. That's what I want you to be focusing on. I just want to be focusing your brain on, okay? And what you'll find is as you focus on this over a period of time, you are changing your mind. You're changing your mindset, and you'll become naturally more resilient in these situations. How cool is that?
That is excellent. Excellent.
And that's what I got for you.
Well, Grace, I appreciate it. I mean, this has been very enlightening. I think, you know, in addition to finding my superpower, you know, the P&I bullet points, the safety, the connectedness, just calming down, you know, doing the what can I do right now while you're breathing. And all I could think of was the Buddha stomach. I'm breathing in and the stomach's going out, right? I'm sitting there. And awareness, absolutely. That is a key. I can understand why they named a country after you. I appreciate it.
That's good.
I think, you know, this had some great takeaways. I think it brought it back to understanding why everybody is feeling so stressed in the last, you know, the last few months. And even though I would love to tell you tomorrow it's going to be better, we don't know that. So we need to prepare ourselves, be more hardy, and I do appreciate that. So as you know, as we came into this unenlightened, you have very much helped me to see some great things, and I appreciate that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
And
okay, folks, take good care of yourself, and let's change the world.
Absolutely. Thanks, Grace.
Thank you. Bye.